Here's another kissing bridge. And so from the kissing bridge, you were able to see the manatees in the Manatee Pond. But apparently today, well, I can see tracks. Actually, those are tracks. Tells me that might still be manatees in the pond, but certainly not visible right now. Yeah, but this used to be the Manatee Pond. And that's the zoo. On the other side. Here's one of the birds. The kiskadee.
Oh, this is my day. I'm ready to take it on, come what may.
This is Mandela Avenue. Just at the junction where it becomes Sheriff Street. So across that bridge, Mandela Avenue becomes Sheriff Street. And this is the Botanical Gardens. East of Mandela Avenue. You can see there is still some vacant land, but beyond these bushes there is a new neighborhood going up. New residential neighborhood. And as you can see, there is this major construction also going up on Mandela Avenue opposite the Botanical Gardens. So there's the Botanical Gardens to the west. And then there's this construction site. Okay, so apparently the property has been sold and is now property of Continental Hotels and Resorts Limited. So I'm assuming that somebody intends to build some hotels in this location. And somebody else is building what seems to be a major building of some sort. Let's see what the sign says. So that's the Botanical Gardens to the west. And over south is the Cultural Center. So what we'll show here is this sign. It says Orchid Gardens Hotel and Mall. So apparently this is going to be a new hotel and mall called Orchid Gardens, and it's next door to the Chinese embassy on Mandela Avenue. Alright, so that's the Chinese embassy on Mandela Avenue. And next door to it is going to be this hotel and mall, shopping mall. But right now, let's turn our attention to the Botanical Gardens. We're going to go through the gardens by sneaking into the back gate. So they usually open this gate on weekends, but because there were a spate of robberies. They've had to weld it shut for a long time. Now I think they're going to open it periodically on some kind of schedule. But this is the Botanical Gardens in 2017. Now the back end of gardens has always been left undeveloped, and I've always assumed this was on purpose, but it does have potential to become much more welcoming and useful, inviting piece of property in the city. I was hoping that they could build some tennis courts, perhaps a golf course in here, but we'll see. This is the Botanical Gardens East End. So this is the back entrance that we just came in. We just came in through that back gate, and now we're heading towards the front. It's about a mile between the front entrance and the back entrance. So normally when I want a short run, I just come into the gardens and I run a few lengths, 3 or 4 lengths from between the back gate and the front gate. Each length is a mile, or just under a mile, I think. Yeah, just under a mile, 3/4 of a mile perhaps. So there's a lot of birds, local birds. You probably hear them in the background, and so there are usually bird tours in the gardens on a typical morning. So some mornings I come in here and there are groups of tourists with binoculars doing bird watching, and I think it was one of those tourists who was brutally robbed one morning that led to the gate being welded shut here, because apparently morning people were using that as criminal element. Were coming into the gardens, robbing people and running out the back entrance, and I think that has so far been curtailed because of added security and the sealing of the back route and exit. But I think a permanent solution still awaits. They probably need to put street lights in this along this road through the gardens, and permanent guard outposts. But here it is, just wildlife and jungle in the heart of the city. But this is the Botanical Gardens. Now in the Botanical Gardens, that is the front of the Botanical Gardens, and we're coming up to the halfway point because the roundabout and just ahead marks the halfway point in the gardens. That roundabout is about half a mile from the back gate. But at the front of the Botanical Gardens has always been the zoo, the only zoological park in Guyana, and we're going to take a look at that sometime. So here is the Botanical Gardens wildlife sign that shows some of the wildlife to be found here. Toucans, parrots and macaws are among the birds that can be seen here. And in fact, if you listen carefully, you can hear the different sounds of the parrots. They make a distinct sound from the rest of their bird cousins. And if you are a bird watcher, it's one of the places you're guaranteed to see parrots in South America. Parrots and macaws. So in the background you can probably hear the sound of parrots Those squawking sounds of parrots. Parrots and macaws. And below that you'll probably hear several other bird calls. So this is the roundabout, marks the halfway point. Botanical Gardens. On the left, that is south. There is the 7 Ponds, Place of Heroes. So this is the monument that was built to honor some famous Guyanese. That's the 7 Ponds. And those are the tombs. So the 7 Ponds is basically a cemetery, but it's one of the early sculptures, and of course that's the mausoleum for the late Lyndon Forbes Samson Burnham. So the sign says it's built in 1969, the place of the 7 Ponds, and they're laid out in a circle around the monument. And across on the other side, that is north of the central pavement going through the park, is the zoological park, the zoo, the Georgetown Zoo. So that is the Georgetown Zoo, and this is the famous Kissing Bridge. There are at least 2 of these bridges, known as the Kissing Bridge for obvious reasons, and they still exist, have been renovated and refurbished to make them still useful and accessible. So that's the Botanical Gardens and the zoo. It's really tiny by international standards. Here you have a large flock of seabirds, garlings, nesting in one of the trees here in the Botanical Gardens, and chirping away to their heart's content. That's the bandstand. And that's also newly constructed. Here again is a part of the zoo, zoological park, with some donkeys. Donkeys in captivity. and some goats. I guess this must be a petting zoo, or at least a part of the zoo reserved for pets. And here is the famous Manatee Pond. So I don't know if the manatees still live in this pond, but when we were kids we would come out to the Manatee Pond on a Saturday afternoon to feed the manatees. We'd feed them grass and they'd come up to chomp on the grass. So here's another kissing bridge. And so from the kissing bridge you were able to see the manatees in the Manatee Pond. But apparently today, well, I can see tracks. Actually, those are tracks. Tells me that might still be manatees in the pond, but certainly not visible right now. Yeah, but this used to be the Manatee Pond. And that's the zoo on the other side. Here's one of the birds, a kiskadee. Okay, that's the zoo. And so that's it. That is the Botanical Gardens. So it's still very early on Saturday morning, so won't be able to take a look around the zoo. But here is the sign: strictly no fishing, no littering in these ponds and these manatees. They eat only grass and aquatic vegetation. So fish hooks, plastic and metal materials will cause serious harm or even death to these mammals. And I guess this is where manatees are held. So this is the holding pond for the manatees, and they're released. And that's the entrance to the zoo. I don't think it's open, so it's a bit early. It's a bit early for visiting the zoo. This is a famous leatherback turtle. Oh, and by the way, it's open from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. daily, and the cost is $200 for adults and $2,000 for videotaping. So that is the zoo, the Georgetown Zoological Park in the Botanical Gardens. And here is, actually I think this is new because I don't remember this being here before, but this is the duck pond. So there is a duck pond. And there are a couple of ducks, a few ducks, 3 ducks actually. These are what, Muscovy ducks. And the duck pond. Now, the thing about ducks in Guyana is they make good curry. So you wouldn't see a lot of ducks, wild ducks, hanging around like they do in Canada, in Ontario, or Canada geese. If they ever come this far south, they probably wouldn't return, because Guyanese make a famous duck curry duck. But there you have it, the Botanical Gardens in 2017. This water feature is new. This is a water feature that was built recently, and it's meant to beautify the Botanical Gardens. And here we are at the front entrance of the Botanical Gardens. So we came all the way in from the back gate. This is the front entrance, and like it says, there is one-way traffic through to Mandela Avenue on weekends. There's a friendly game of cricket going on there. And this is the Genman building, the educational center. Morning. So there you have it, Botanical Gardens. And this is Regent Street. This is the eastern end of Regent Street, with Border, Blissingen Road, entrance to the Botanical Gardens, and south towards Cemetery Road. If you want to see more content like this, click like and subscribe and share this video. Leave a comment below. And later.